see the on-the-air light has come on, so we're gonna give it a moment or two before we actually start, just to see if the attorney is coming. I think Mr. Rummer is checking on that as we speak, so we'll give it a minute and then we'll see what we're doing here. And we may temporarily have you take Jason's spot here. If we don't see Jason coming, we may put you up in the corner there. So we'll give it a minute and see what we're getting here. I suppose in the meantime, while we're waiting and doing one of those dances to keep things moving, you should, all the members, you should have gotten your form from the supervisor of elections for the financial disclosure. Do make sure you fill that out and turn that in before July 1st.
December, right? December 29th?
Yeah, but for its last year's income and all that, but yeah, it has to be in by but before July 1st, because July 1st they start fining you $25 a day. So you do want to make sure you have that on record before then. So yeah. And with that, we'll give Mr. Rummer one more minute, and then we'll see about getting started here, so that we can move along and not keep everybody sitting and waiting here. What's that? We have an attorney? Okay, good. We'll let her come on in and we'll get started. Alrighty. Alright. So I guess with that, let's call the meeting to order. We'll have everybody rise for invocation and then a pledge led by Vice Chair Williams. Heavenly Father, we ask a blessing on our meeting. We ask to give us wisdom to make the right decisions to move forward to our city commission with. We ask a blessing on all of our staff for the work they're doing during these trying times with the COVID. Keep them all safe and well as they go about doing their job. We ask a blessing on all of our first responders. Keep them well as they go about their job of keeping us safe. Same for our doctors and nurses and all those folks that allow the people who can stay home from work or work at home, that allow them to be able to do that. Bless them too, keep them safe and healthy. And then finally, on our military, Lord, wherever they are in the world, keep them safe and bring them home to us. We ask all of this in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And thank you. And then we'll have the roll call and determine a quorum. And Jerry, I think for now anyway, I'm going to have you come on up and take Jason's seat, and we'll introduce you in just a second after the quorum here. So we're gonna have you come on up there for now. If Jason makes it, we'll change out. But in the meantime, Madam Clerk, we'll turn it over to you.
Chair Keller,
Chair here.
Vice Chair Williams,
Present. Member Lumnick?
Present.
Member Forges?
Here.
Missing someone on this here. Member Mellon is absent, and alternate member Lowe.
All right.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. So just before we get started here, just a reminder, I'm going to take this off for a second, I apologize, but all interested parties are invited to be heard during the public hearing portion of the meeting. Due to the current state of emergency regarding the COVID-19, City Hall is still closed technically to the public. However, the city requests the public to call or email comments and or questions to 407-554-7118 or to the citizens@ocoee.org is the email address. So if you do have anything, we would appreciate you calling in or emailing us, and if we hear that, we'll make sure that we get you on the phone there and get your comments on the record there. So with that, before we go any further, we do have a new member sitting up here tonight. As you know, we normally have an alternate. With the one member having resigned, then Member Forges moved up from the alternate to a regular member, and so we had to replace the alternate, and that is going to be Jerry Lowe. So welcome aboard there, Jerry. Welcome to the board. He is sitting in tonight for Jason, unless Jason shows up. But other than that, you'll be voting tonight. So welcome aboard, and nothing like jumping right on in. So.
Why not? Thank you.
And with that, I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Make a motion.
All right, I have a motion by Member Lomnick,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Williams. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carried. We do not have any old business. For the Comfort Inn, I do have one email to read from Thomas Files, and it says, due to the ongoing circumstances, we would like to cancel our current scheduled P&Z review. Please call me with any questions. So the first item on the business is going to be withdrawn. At some future time, they will need to go through the process again and get it re-advertised and everything else. So at this time, it's being withdrawn. Okay. So that moves us on to the second order of business, which is the Ocoee landings. And I'd like to introduce Mike Zoning Manager Gajadar. We'll turn it over to you there, Keel. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commission. The first item tonight is a substantial amendment to the PUD for the Ocoee Landings commercial portion of the PUD. The property is located to the north of Silver Star Road, east of Clark Road, west of Johire Shores Road. Just a little bit of background. The development itself was a mixed-use residential commercial. It was approved in October 2015. 9.15 acres of residential. Most of that is developed now, as you probably noticed. 6.89 acres commercial that's currently vacant. The commercial portion was originally approved for C2 uses, with a few exceptions to those C2 uses. The commercial is intended to be subdivided into 4 lots. So to give a better visual, this is the commercial portion, and to the right, you can probably see some of the plats for the residential. Silver Star Road, North Clark Road, Publix. The subdivision itself is pretty consistent with the neighboring properties. So it's commercial here. Obviously the PUD is planned as a commercial with C2. So the amendment that's being proposed tonight is really to allow 2 uses. One is to allow automotive repair as a permitted use for Lot 1 for a Firestone. And the second is to allow car wash as an approved PUD use for a future business by a special exception. Both these uses are allowed in C3, but as I stated earlier, the PUD is zoned with a C2 use with certain exceptions. This is a layout of the actual the proposed subdivision. So the Firestone is proposed at Lot 1, which is adjacent to the commercial to the west. And then a future car wash would be located in any one of these lots. Now, to access the properties would be off of Ohio from Silver Star, as well as, off of Silver Star to here, and then off of Ohio to here. So 2 ways to get on there. So in order for the amendment, we've requested some renderings, and these renderings are based on what's proposed, or the type of Firestone that's proposed, or the layout of Firestone. This is a depiction of it off of, here's Silver Star, and here's Ohio Bay. I believe the name of the road. So the bays are really gonna be facing towards the commercial side of the property, rather than towards the residential. Another depiction. So the Development Review Committee, DRC, recommended approval based on our meeting, and staff does recommend approval of the substantial amendment to allow the Firestone on Lot 1 and a car wash as a future use by a special exception. The applicants are here as well. They can answer any questions, but I'm also ready to answer any questions if there are any.
All right, and so we'll bring it up to the dais to start. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Yep.
Here,
No.
My question is, and forgive me that my memory may be a little fuzzy here, but the special exception, is that something that's gonna have to come back separately, or did we already review that?
For the car wash, it would
Mhm.
have to come back because it's a special exception.
Okay, that's what I was trying to be clear of. And with the Firestone, with the automotive repair, we're not gonna change the underlying zoning, correct? We're just going to allow it as part of the PUD?
As a permitted use of the PUD, correct.
Okay.
Additional questions?
And what was auto repair shop not allowed there to begin with? What was
Yes,
the reason for that?
originally it was, the PUD is for permitted uses for C2 zoning.
C2, okay.
We don't have that many auto repair shops within that vicinity, in that area. And based on the design that's provided as well, we thought it was wise, or it was consistent with the area to do a Firestone based on what they proposed for the automotive repair, to allow that on Lot 1. But specifically Lot 1, due to its location from the residential to the east and the north, and its location to commercial to the left, where the bays, all the noise from the bays and the mechanic would be going towards commercial rather than the residential to the east.
Okay, so the bays will be open towards Silver Star or towards the road between, by the bank there?
Towards the public side.
Okay, so those will be this way, and the back will be towards the car lot.
Yeah, you can kind of see
I'm
here.
sorry, the car wash.
So this would be Silver Star, and here, now the car wash isn't, this has nothing to do with the car wash. This is
Correct.
specific for Firestone and the car wash. The bays are facing the Publix, which is the west.
Okay.
So what is the outline difference between this development and the development by the Dunkin' Donuts over on West Road where we, made some issues with the gas station pumps? This looks like it's the same size as a big gas station, so what's the difference?
I might have to defer to,
So isn't it the same thing where there's foot
Yes.
traffic from the neighborhood?
Yeah, thanks for the record, Mike Reamer, Development Services Director. Yeah, this development, just like the development at the intersection of Ocoee Crown Point Parkway and Ocoee Apopka Road near West Road, they were both rezoned to plan unit development together, as with residential component and a commercial component. With the one that you asked about, we specifically saw a need for a gas station in the area, and we made that initial thought and said, we could do a gas station here, but let's try to make it more of a neighborhood-type gas station, reduce the amount of fueling positions. The automobile repair use used to be a lot permitted in C2. And back when the State Road 50 was really getting a lot of development, we got a couple proposals, and we have a number of automobile repair on State Road 50. And specifically in one of the community redevelopment agency target areas, where we're trying to get the dense urban development, we've got a user, national tire user, that wanted to have 8 to 10 bays. And that was not pedestrian, that was really automotive eccentric. So we rezoned the allowable uses in C2 and took automobile repair out of that, which left it in C3 and I1. It was really intended to protect the State Road 50 corridor from, we had the number of them already, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with just, so, and in the PUD you mentioned, we excluded banks. We didn't specifically exclude automobile repair, but we gave a list of permitted uses, one of them being the gas station. So we took that in mind, that there's gonna be commercial and there's gonna be residential mixed together.
Cool.
Now, did you have another question there? No, okay. I did have a question also as well. I know in the past, one of our biggest issues has been tires outside and just the general look of a tire repair place. Are there anything that's being put into place so that that is not going to happen here, or are we gonna come back with the same thing about, look at all these tires sitting outside the front of my house
Are you
now?
referring to storage outside or just having the
Well,
displays?
storage outside, and also a lot of it, I think, is just the fact that they seem to put them out there as a, you know, to let people know that hey, we do tires here. And so you land up with, that was, I always know was one of the biggest complaints was, you got all these tires sitting out there, you know, I'm coming to my house, and because, let's face it, further down that road, that, what is it, Ohio Landing, I think it is, you have homes back there. I mean, you have Publix on the one side, but you have those gated community behind it. So I'm just wondering, what's the aesthetics gonna look like if this goes in?
I know they're not allowed to have storage based on the zoning, so there's no storage on the outside for those such things.
Looked like you had a huge green zone buffer too. There was a large shrubbery, right?
They would be required to have some buffering,
I think
correct?
that'll cover most of that up, Mr. Chairman.
However, as far as having the tires outside, I think just the nature of the business, I'm not sure if we can put any conditions on not allowing that.
I think he means like stacks of tires that got a cover over it that says Michelin and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, it's a tire sale, you know, they got 40
Well,
tires sitting
there's-
out there in the front, you know,
Tires itself,
and that's their billboard, if you will.
because I mean, it's physically the tires itself.
Yeah,
Not
yeah, I
signs.
mean, you know, I've seen it where, you know, they put these big tarps over there and say, hey, here's a tire sale, you know.
Code enforcement issue.
Mike, tires, as far as tires, are we,
Prohibit outside storage materials.
yeah, the storage, I know it's not allowed, but I think in regard to just having the tires out there.
That would be outside storage materials.
Okay.
Okay,
So it
that'd
would be considered,
prohibited.
would not be allowed.
Okay.
So the automobile repair, I guess I'm not following the thinking on why at this location, since it's not already, it wasn't already part of the PUD, why particularly automobile repair versus something else? Is it more of a business sense, or was it more of
I
a,
believe one is for the need and two is for the proposal of the design. There are not many Firestones. This is a newer design
okay,
for Firestone, but if you look at within the vicinity, for the neighborhood itself, there are not that many of that type of business, neighborhood repair type.
Yeah, and as we evaluated the area upon the request of looking at automotive repair. There's only one automotive user, that's the Quick Change oil place there. And so when we looked at the opportunities for people to live, work near their house, this would provide an opportunity for someone to be able to, like Commissioner Keller, yourself, to not have to go to State Road 50. You could stay closer and enjoy other uses in the area. So. And it fronts an arterial road. It's adjacent to the Publix and to a bank. So we limited it to that lot 1, facing the bays away. That was they didn't ask to have the building parallel to the road where all the bays face the road, which is what the older ones along State Road 50 have, so.
Okay.
In the rear of the building, will not have any roll-ups? It's an enclosed rear of the building, correct?
I'm sorry.
The rear of the, my accent, that's not gonna work either.
The back of the building, there's
The
no.
back of the
roll-up
building,
doors.
the rear of it, so there's not gonna be a roll-up going up sometime in the future. What we're saying is what's going to be built there, right?
Yeah, this is the layout right here, actually.
And do you have a northern elevation?
The back of it.
Kind of give us an idea what the landscape looks like on the
Back would be
north
facing,
side of it?
yep, the north, right here.
He wants to see the one where all the shrubs were the.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we currently don't have that available right now.
Oh, I thought you had one in there that had, the greenery.
Because we've got
Yes,
Silver
oh,
Star,
I'm sorry, yes.
but yeah, that's all we have.
This would be coming from the neighborhood to the north.
Okay. This is the north side.
Okay, so coming, headed toward Silver Star.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yes.
So this is where
That's
you
the
be
south
located.
side.
Here's Silver Star here,
Okay.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
so
Okay.
you're looking down.
So that's towards the gated community.
Yeah, up here
But
would be,
also-
Coming from the
Star
gated
to the
community, the
gated
bank is
Correct,
over
coming
here,
from the gated
Publix is
community.
over here. That's the tire side, you're looking at Silver Star in front of you.
Okay, that's where I originally
Yeah.
thought, okay. All right,
Were there any special conditions by the DRC when this went to them?
no special conditions.
Okay.
It was based on the renderings, so as long as it's conforming to the renderings that is provided right now.
All right. No additional questions? Before we open it up to the public, we'll give the speaker a minute to come on up and give his name and address if he has anything he would like to add, or?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Chip Bryan, representing the applicant. I'm the owner of the PUD.
Okay.
Any questions that you have? I think staff's done a great job with the presentation. I don't have anything further to add, but I'm happy to respond to any inquiries.
Okay.
I have a quick, I'm sorry. Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
go
I have one more question for you. I'm looking at your recommendation. Your recommendation says "and," so it's saying allow automotive repair on lot 1 and car wash is approved. So we're not talking about a car wash, right?
The car wash would be separately to allow that within the PUD at a later time through a special exception. So we're doing both. Firestone on lot 1 specifically. So the amendment is to add allow the Firestone on lot 1, as well as at a future time allow car wash, since car wash is also not currently a permitted use in the PUD.
Well, we haven't really talked about the car wash though.
Right, and that would come back through you guys through a special exception at a later time.
So it shouldn't be "and" then, right? We shouldn't even be talking about the car
Oh, I
wash
see
if we're
what
not
you're
talking about it.
But right now, a car wash cannot be considered because it's not a permitted use.
Right.
So-
I'm just saying about your recommendation says allow automotive repair on lot 1 and car wash.
Right.
So we're either talking about it or we're not talking.
It will
Yeah,
be,
correct, but through a special exception.
Yeah, so we updated the recommendation you'll see here to say be a special exception. And the idea with the special exception option is one of the 3 parcels may be appropriate, it may not.
Mhm.
And how do you figure that out? They provide, car washes have changed from what we have, what you've seen in the older days. They have a lot of aspects where you do it yourself, you drive through, they have the vacs. Some of them really look sharp, more modern. They employ people, and so it may be appropriate, it may not. That's why it allows that special exception to say, if uses come in on the first 2 lots and the
Yeah.
one to the rear, behind, right adjacent to the Willows subdivision, if a car wash comes in there, and somehow they can make it work and mitigate instances, it might be appropriate, it might not. So it doesn't give it as an outright use, it gives the opportunity to come through and show the plan.
Okay, I mean, my only thing was if I went ahead and and called for a motion, I would
Yes.
call for a motion on this, but
Right.
I wouldn't specify, so I just wanted to make sure I'm saying, when I say, hey, I make a motion, that it's not including this car wash.
It is including the car wash as a permitted, as a use under a special exception
For lot two,
for the development.
for the development.
For the
Lot
PUD.
one for the automobile repair,
Okay.
car
Oh,
wash
okay.
as a special exception. That's what happens in C2
Okay.
right now. A school is permitted under a special exception,
Yeah, I get it.
so.
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but just so we're clear, what we're voting on is allowing it to be a permitted use. And then when it comes back, because it is a permitted use, then they have to come back and do the substantial change?
No,
Sub-
you're
special
permitting
exception.
automobile repair on lot
And special
one
exception of
as a
that?
permitted use. Car wash is a special exception. That's it.
Okay, so at a later date, then, if they come back with the car wash and it just doesn't work, we can recommend not approval without taking away any
A zoning
entitlement.
right, correct,
Okay,
correct.
Cool, thanks. Sorry about all that. Sorry, Mr.
Oh, that's quite all right.
And Chairman, there's one email I think you have.
Yeah, I have
And
one
then
email.
I had another email I answered. They just asked if it's adjacent to the public. This PUD is adjacent to the public or adjacent to the memory care. So I replied to that email, it's adjacent to the
Okay.
public.
All right, so at this point, I'm going to open the public hearing. And we do have one on this one, so I will read it. And then at that point, anybody else who would like to call in or or send another email, again, the phone number, if you want to call in on this issue, is 407-554-7118. Or send an email to citizens@ocoee.org, and we will get those out here, and we'll get them in as part of it. Again, we've opened the public hearing. Let me read this. This is from Giselle Johnson. To whom it may concern, I am responding to the PUD land use plan that borders the subdivision of Ocoee Landing. I am a resident in Ocoee Landing, and I oppose the use of the property for an auto repair shop and car wash. There is no light to enter or exit the area. There is no U-turn at the light at Silver Star and Clark Road. This would only leave cars trying to get to the area making a U-turn across from Ocoee Landing. Having a business that would bring a constant increase of automobiles would create exiting or trying to get home to Ocoee Landing a nightmare due to the increased number of cars making a U-turn across from the subdivision. This would also create additional use of Walgreen parking lot to get back to Silver Star headed east, as is the only way to get back to Silver Star headed east due to a no U-turn at the light. As a resident of Ocoee Landing, I was hoping that the property would be used as a strip mall-like atmosphere, such as the one at the corner of Highway 50 and McGuire. Small businesses, sandwich shops, coffee shops, etc. My question is, if we were to get a petition started to assist with blocking the use of the auto repair shop / car wash, what is the deadline to have it into the Planning and Zoning Commission? Thank you for considering my voice in this matter, and then feel free to contact her. At this point, we're already at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, so the petition would have to go before the City Commission, as they would be the ones who have the final vote on that. So if you were going to do that, I'm assuming that it'll probably be either at the next meeting or the following. It would have to be advertised as to when it's going to be there. You'd have to have the petition to come at that meeting. Is this a one that they would have 2 readings, Mike? Okay, so 2 readings. So if it was at the first, let's see, this is the 9th, so if they had it at the 16th, that'd be the first reading. You would have to definitely have it there by the first meeting in July, would be the, which I believe
No,
would be
that's
the.
canceled.
Okay, the 7th has been canceled, so you're talking about the 21st being the first meeting in July. So you would have to have your petition signed and be ready to present by then, I think would be the correct answer to your question.
Are the trips already factored into this?
Correct. Originally, this was vested as a commercial source.
I would say they're already coming out of the bank and everything there anyway. Whether if you put a strip mall there or a automotive, you're gonna have the same issues on the road, so I don't think it really matters.
For the subdivision itself, there would be the exit off of East Silver Star or as well as Johire Drive. Like Johire Drive.
All right. Additional emails or calls. Again, the phone number 407-554-7118 or an email to citizens@ocoee.org. I think we got about, what is that, about three just ran out there. So are there any additional calls or emails?
No, we received no more.
Put your recommendation back up. Can you put your recommendation back up?
Okay. Hearing none, I am going to close the public hearing. Now, we need one motion is necessary, so can I have a motion to approve or disapprove the substantial amendment to the Ocoee Landings PUD?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the substantial land amendment to the PUD, and also, with the car wash is permitted via special exception.
All right, there is a motion by Member Lomnick. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second by Member Forges. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, so carried unanimous. All right,
Thank you.
thank you all. All right. Our next item is the public hearing for the Memory Care Cottage of Ocoee, large-scale preliminary final site plan, and again, zoning manager Gajadar will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. As you said, the next item is for the Memory Care Cottages at Ocoee. It's a large-scale preliminary/final site plan. The parcel is located to the north of Silver Star Road, to the west of, to the east of Johio Shores. The plan is proposing a 5-building, single-story memory care assisted living facility, so known as the ALF. It will comprise of 4 residences, 96 beds in total, 14,000 or so square feet, and one commons building. The ALF is consistent with the residential zoning that surrounds it, as I'll show you in a second. The parcel will be surrounded by 15 to 25 feet of a landscape buffer. The main access to the development will be off of Johire Shores Road, and there will be an emergency access off of Silver Star Road to the north. So a better view of the parcel. Here's Old Silver Star Road, current Silver Star Road, and Johire Shore Road. So, as you can see, it's consistent with the surrounding residential. So to the north, to the south, east, and west, including the Ocoee Landings PUD here, which is also part of that PUD I just discussed. Here's the residential side. So the ALF is consistent with the residential type. It's also consistent with our future land use, which is surrounded by low-density residential. Right here. So all in yellow is the low-density residential. Above you is the proposed site plan. So these are the 4 resident buildings, commons building, the entrance off of Johire Shore, and the emergency exit, which will be gated off of Old Silver Star Road. Again, it's surrounded by a large landscape buffer. For the most part, it's 25 feet around the entire thing. There will be some drainage on site, which is to the south and to the east. Attaches some renderings of the proposed development. The buildings are to be fenced individually, as you can see here. So again, the DRC met and approved, recommends approval of the plan It's currently still in the review process, so pending staff comments. Staff does recommend approval of the large-scale site plan for the Maneri Cottages of Ocoee, ALF. With that, I'll take the questions.
All right, board, is there anyone have any questions on?
Any DOT requirement for a traffic light, because that's gonna be right in front of Temple Grove Estate, right? Which is,
It's off the cut, well,
Right.
it's off the beaten path there.
Supper Grove,
of course, correct, on the south side, that road there is Temple Grove Estate, isn't it? Oh, no,
No.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, this is farther back, never mind, it's farther back.
so this is direct left of Silver Star.
Okay,
They'll be entering from off of Johio Shores, right?
okay.
And then the
this
entrance
is
will be
across.
right here.
Yeah, that is Temple Grove, right, that intersection?
I'm not,
You
You're
need to
referring to
go
right here?
left to
No, to the
left.
south, to the south.
Yeah, to
Right
the other side of Silver Star.
yes, the south, yes,
That's
you're
Temple
correct.
Grove, right?
So down here,
Correct, yeah.
I believe you're correct.
Right, isn't that Temple Grove Estate?
I thought it was the, Silver Glen.
Silver Glen is,
Glen or
yeah,
something
Silver
like
Glen
that.
is directly across from, so Silver Glen would be right here.
Oh, okay. So then you're right, it's.
Correct, on the south side, because I mean, I don't think it's far enough from Parkway for traffic light, is it?
I think a traffic study was done. I feel
It's
like,
not necessary?
I'm sorry?
It's not necessary?
I don't believe it was necessary at the time.
Yeah,
Because this development is considered low traffic because
Mhm.
most of them, it's only
Yeah,
for
'cause
staff
they're-
really.
They're residents.
It's not a lot of in and out as compared to residential, typical residential.
This may be a question for the applicant, but, and it's really just out of curiosity. Are these apartment style, is the I know the building is the 4 buildings, but within the buildings, are there individual apartment-like?
I'll defer that to the applicant.
Yeah, okay.
There's 96 units, yeah.
We have a request from a phone call to be able to see where that emergency exit is, so I'd put that up.
Okay.
I'm gonna talk to him.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, that's a 4-lane road with a median in the middle, I don't see why traffic light would be needed there, but come out of that neighborhood.
Yeah, the concern may be that there's too many, you gotta do too many U-turns coming up. Everybody's U-turning in that area.
Correct. From Silver Bend, you have to U-turn to go west. Real concern is, how high the landscaping is gonna be on that complex, because if you're coming out to Ohio and you're making a left turn, if the landscaping is too high, you're gonna have a hard time seeing cars coming going westbound.
It's not a,
If you're going eastbound, it's hard to see a car, going westbound if you're going eastbound from that intersection.
The
As it
landscaping,
is now.
right, the landscaping will be there, however, it's set back a certain distance as well. It's required to be set back for that field of view vision.
yeah, you see the drainage pond
And
in
then,
front?
the draining pond is there, but it'll be landscaped as well before it, but I believe,
Oh,
it's
I
not going
see.
too far out.
So
I'm just
it's
waiting on
soft-
Director
it's a
Rumor
Soft
to,
shoulder,
sorry?
soft shoulder, so you can see the road. You can see it now when you go down there. That's where that circle turnaround is on that side road there.
All right. With that, we'll invite the applicant up to introduce themselves and see if there's any comments they want to add or.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chuck Pigeon with Pigeon Roberts Engineering and project engineer, principal engineer of the company, Linda Pigeon. To answer your question, first, let me just explain, these are single-story buildings, and we've worked with the architect to make them look as much like a residential home and residential structure as possible. One story, and the roof systems and all, so it doesn't look institutional at all. That's the primary purpose of this. And they are 24 individual units within a building. They're not apartments, and they're not treated as such. Each unit has their own self-space, as if it's like a studio unit. Yeah, but they all can congregate in a center area, lounge, and some services. So it's not an apartment, but it's congregate living.
Is it standard ALF rooms? I mean, just a door?
They're designed to standard ALF standards for safety and security and whatnot. So, thank you, staff, for the presentation. We appreciate the photo information and the site plan, and we're here to answer for any questions you may have. Just pointing out that it is a Department of Transportation facility right next to this, so our design has met all of the DOT standards, including the site distance and the site triangle when you come up to the intersection. So when you do stop, there's a sidewalk there, and then the landscaping is pushed back so that you have a proper site triangle. That was one of the things when they first looked at the site and wanted to consider this site as opposed to they have 5 sites in the state of Florida. This is the second one. First one was in Collier County. So this site they looked at, and they were just concerned about the curve and would they be able to make sure it's safe to get out, and we've looked at that. It is.
Thank you.
Is the front gated too?
The front is not gated.
Okay.
It's it's just the one access drive that would be onto Old Silver Star Road. That's for emergency purposes for both fire, police, and ambulance. And it's gated and locked. It does have a knock box on it for automatic opening, but it'd be about 95 to 99% of the time closed, unless there was a specific need that they had to access from that side of the structure.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, so we are going to open the public hearing. We'll give them some time to dial in or to email in. Again, the phone number, if you have any input on this, the phone number is area code 407-554-7118, or you can email at citizens@ocoee.org, and we'll give it a few minutes in case anyone does. Now, did I understand that there was, yeah, okay, I was going to say, I thought there was one person, okay, there was 2 that needed to be called, okay.
Is this David Swisher? Hi, this is the city of Ocoee. Are you ready to speak with the commission? Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker. One moment, please.
All right there, David. I guess what we'd ask is for your name and address so we know who you are, and then go ahead and ask your questions or your input.
Hello, my name is David Swisher. I live at 2432 Ohio Bay Drive, which is exactly across the street entrance to this facility. I have 3 questions. First of all, why would there not be a wall or a fence around the perimeter to eliminate people coming and going, particularly in this environment we're in today? How would you quarantine that facility?
And you may want to turn down your television or your computer because you're getting a feedback. We're hearing everything you say twice.
I appreciate the fact that they're going to put a tree buffer around the perimeter, but how are you going to restrict people from coming and going onto the property itself, particularly in the environment we're in today?
So that's one question. Can you ask the second question, then I'll address both.
David, did you have a second question as well, and then they'll address both questions?
Did you want to proceed?
My
Answer-
second question is, the entrance to this facility is halfway between the old Silver Star Road and the entrance from Silver Star today on Shirley Shores. There is no posted speed limit, and I can tell you right now, people coming off of Silver Star going around that corner are doing in excess of 45, 50 miles an hour. My third question is this. Has there been any environmental study to identify the tortoise population on that property?
Mr. Chairman, you want me to answer the question?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll let you go ahead, and, so if I've got that right, one of the first question,
We're getting too much feedback right now.
was about whether there's, how you would quarantine. The second question, I guess, has to do with with the entrance.
Mhm.
I didn't hear a question per se in there, but it seemed to be where the entrance was between the two, and the possible speed limits of the people coming in, and is that, I guess that was the question there, just to realize the speed, and then the third being tortoise environmental study. So we'll let
Correct.
you.
All right, question number one was a question about the walls, fences, and security. For this particular facility, the 4 buildings are all enclosed within a decorative, non-climb architectural fence. So any memory care resident that would be there, they are contained within the area, but because of the fence, they don't feel like they're in a compound. A lot of landscaping. Between the 4 buildings is substantial courtyards and trellis work and different special plantings. So there's a lot of outdoor area still within what they don't realize is a closed-in compound. It keeps people from coming in and keeps folks from going out.
Does each building have its own memory care unit, or is it gonna be one memory care unit in one building, or is each one gonna have their own memory care unit?
All buildings are for memory care. They do have a commons building, which is also within the enclosed courtyard area, where they can come for meals, they come for socializing, they come for programs, and they stay within the courtyard, and it's almost like being at a hotel.
Yeah, I think part of his first question was he was concerned about your back entrance coming right up to the front of his property.
And to answer that question, for safety, life safety, and code, we have to have the 2 access points. And because of the landscaping and because of the decorative fencing, and the fact that it's closed all the time, it looks like it'd be a gated community with the gates closed. There's a cul-de-sac at that end of the unit, so any, whether it be a golf cart to deliver products to each of the units, they'll use a little turnaround and come back.
You show that color, the one with that one. So I'm taking it, his house is probably that white roof one right there next to the road, which your entrance is probably going right at his driveway, I'm assuming he's saying. But is there, from the map to me, it doesn't look like there's any way to put that entrance, that's the only, that exit, that's the only way you can put it, right?
Correct. I mean, our first goal and attempt was to line it directly up with the city street, but it would not fit that way, and it moved everything that was call it the business part as opposed to the residential part. It moved the business part closer to the residential side. So this way, We kept all of the commons building, all the parking, all of the deliveries, whether it be solid waste or whether it just be food service. That's all on the Silver Star Road side. What they have on their residential side is residential buildings and what looks like a gated driveway, which will never be used.
I believe he lives to the west, Johire Shores Bay on the left side,
Yes.
on the west side.
The second question, if we done with the first, second question to do with the driveway connection entrance, and we realize it is about halfway between Silver Star Road and the adjacent residential street, and that meets DOT criteria, meets the city's criteria as far as a minimum spacing from an intersection and from both intersections. So that's one criteria the city has to make sure that there's not conflicting intersections. I understand if someone comes off of Silver Star and they really want to get home quickly, you know, they're going to put the metal, you know, gas pedal in, and they're going to come there. That road, we can't do anything about that, but that road is very low posted speed. They're not supposed to be doing that kind of speed, and we have met the city code by putting it where it is to avoid conflicting traffic at intersections.
I wonder if maybe we just put a speed table in there. I don't know, that's probably.
I was gonna say, I don't know
No,
if you,
on
I don't know if you can on
the road,
Jahio.
Silver Star.
That's the,
Speed table program provided by the Public Works Department, it requires a test and a study to be done in order to have that qualify for a city speed table.
Right. And as staff has mentioned, this is a very low volume traffic generation. The most of the traffic is just generated by staff.
Yeah.
And all the parking spaces you do see, it's really for the shift change. You have about 8 staff there. When you shift, you gotta have 8 staff plus 8, and then they shift. So you need more parking spaces. And so that's really what's happening here with the parking. It's a very low traffic generator. And there's obviously visitors, but it's not like visitors to a hospital or something like that. It's more lower key traffic. So the chances of a conflict of cars speeding and going in and turning out is pretty low. And we do, again, meet sight triangles for sight distance, so they will be able to see, because of the sidewalks and because of everything, they will be able to see if someone's coming around that corner from Silver Star. And the last question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, is the environmental. There was a complete environmental study done specifically for protected species, identified 4 gopher tortoises on the property. Most of them are right up against Silver Star Road, and they're between the drainage retention area and the buildings. We have documentation with Florida Fish and Wildlife. They are waiting for a final approval of the site plan, and then they will proceed to issue a removal and relocation permit. So the tortoises will be relocated. That whole side over there around Silver Star Road will be left as natural as possible in a 25-foot buffer. My guess is maybe by the time construction starts, they will probably even move and not be in the construction impact area, or they will come back and be in that area. So we're trying to keep their habitat safe, but we do have to move 4 of them that we've identified. There will be another inspection done before a permit's issued. They were only, they have to be done within 90 days of construction. So there will be another site inspection specifically and reported to the state if there's any other tortoises there. We see a lot of them sometimes leave and not there. Maybe 1 or 2 show up. That'll take place again after approval.
and Vice Chair, I believe you had a question?
Just a follow-up question to the gentleman's before. Delivery, where are your delivery trucks gonna come in and sanitation? They're gonna come in off of Jahio?
Correct. They will come off of the main driveway off of Ohio, and where the trucks will park is right to the west side of the building behind a buffer street area when they're offloading, whether it be food or laundry or services like that.
Okay.
And,
Chair, we do have another caller
I was
on the
gonna say you
line.
had another call, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All
Put on
right.
speaker.
All right, if you will give us your name and address, and we'll turn it over to you.
Sandra, you're online with the commission.
Okay, hi, how are you?
All right, if you could just give us your name and address, and then your comments, we would greatly appreciate it.
Okay, wait, let me get you off the speaker because I don't know if this is where I would ask the question, but on the site plan of the survey, I did see where the dumpster location was, but what I did not see is the air conditioning units, where they would be located. And I'm just, I'm hoping they're not going to be located in the back of the rear building 400 and building 500 that backs up to Old Silver Star Road.
Okay, so I guess
Is
they're
that a
asking where
question
the
for this
AC units.
committee?
Oh, the AC units, okay.
Yeah.
Between the buildings is a corridor for emergency power generators, so they'll be hidden by the buildings. The transformers will be between the buildings, and the actual AC units is a good question. They are, I have to look at the architectural plans. The last project they did, the AC units were hidden up on the roof with a parapet. I'm not sure on this one here specifically, Mr. Chairman, if the AC units are tucked in between the buildings or they remained on the roof.
Okay.
Now, for the
It's
Commons
really-
building, just ask for the
it's-
Commons building, all of the AC units are stacked between the Commons building and the first residential building. Is that which point?
Okay, yeah, honestly, it's so hard to hear you. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to reach out to the architect tomorrow and see if they could decipher,
Right.
tell me where the
Where to point
the
out.
units would be. And the other, I have one request, and I don't know, I spoke to Michael Roomer, and he thought it was, a great request. Is it possible to get a rendering of the back of the buildings, 400 and 500, that faces Old Silver Star Road? So as people that live off of Old Silver Star Road, we would be able to at least visualize what we're going to be, driving up and down the street and seeing.
To answer your question, yes, it's possible to get a rendering. We have renderings of all sides of the building. If you want to show the rendering we have, they're very similar. The architecture was set up where there's no long continuous walls, where it's broken up with a different elevation and distance. So other than the entrance, it's very similar on all sides. Each of the units, would have windows.
Okay.
The walls are broken up to not be a consistent straight wall. And then there's landscape around the perimeter and
All right.
typical roof.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, what's going on? It sounds like it's going to be a pretty nice facility, and I'm hoping and that it will come to fruition. I think it'll be great for our area.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any additional calls or emails?
No, we have received no more.
All right. Hearing no more, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back up to the dais, and ask for the pleasure of that. Again, this is a one motion item, so I need a motion to either approve or disapprove a large-scale preliminary final site plan for the project LS-2020-010.
Make a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I just have one question.
Okay, yep.
I'm sorry. Are you required to have backup generators and stuff like that for a place like this?
Once again, excuse me, sir?
Are you required to have backup generators for a base like this?
I'm not sure if they're required to, but they will have backup generators for,
Any idea where they're going to be located on the property? Near Silver Star or back?
yes, the first and primary generator that they'll have is right next to the Commons building on the west side. I can point to it on the drawing once again. So the backup generator is right here, and so it's hidden between those two buildings and bordered, by the road and the landscaping. In the future, and I'm not sure if they're putting them in today or in the very near future, there's a generator that's located between these two buildings here on this pad and between these two buildings here on this pad. So if they do run, the noise is filtered out or contained in the building envelope. There's a total of 3 generators planned for the future. The first one is here, next one is here, the next one is here.
Okay, so this is just enough to supply each cottage per se, not necessarily a huge one.
Correct.
That's okay.
Correct. And there's some redundancy in cases of failure of one, they have a backup.
All right, and, that's quite all right. And so, Member Lomnick, I believe you made the motion. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second by Vice Chair Williams. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carried. All right. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the next item on the agenda is a legislative update. So we are going to turn it over to our attorney.
Okay, yes, I appreciate that. This legislation, the 2020 legislative session adjourned March 19th, 2020. And I have been tracking a few bills that would be of interest to the city of Ocoee since that time. None of the bills have been presented to the governor yet. They adjourned March 19th. We all went into quarantine right around that time, and the governor's been issuing executive orders right and left. And I haven't heard anything, but I'm assuming that they're just holding these bills until it's a little more convenient for him to actually look at them and approve them. But once he does receive the bills, he'll have 15 days from the time he receives them in order to take action. So we continue to track them through the legislative tracking system, and whenever something goes, I'll know that it's gone to him and he can act on it at that time. So I'm going to just overview 4 bills today. The League of Cities has been, they've given us their usual legislative update, which is quite extensive, but there were 4 that I had my eye on with regard to the city of Ocoee. The first is Senate Bill 410. It's a growth management bill. As you all know, because you consider the amendments to the comp plan, all governments have to have a comprehensive plan, and this controls how we develop our cities and our counties. Well, the entity that actually looks at amendments to the comp plan is called the Department of Economic Opportunity, and they're the state land planning agency. So, but we still have a lot of autonomy as to how we want our cities and our county to look. They have made significant revisions to the growth management law, and an element that will be required in future comp plans, which I thought was really interesting, is a property rights element. So the bill states some language that we can use if we want, or we can create our own, but we will have to incorporate into our comprehensive plan a private property rights element. It also has provided some language relating to development agreements. The city of Ocoee uses a lot of development agreements when we do planning, and it will allow, if there's an amendment to a development agreement, and sometimes these things have been out there for 30, 20 years, and and you can't always track down all the parties and everything, and somebody comes in, they need to amend it, so they have added language to the state law in this bill that would allow you to just go to the party who's requesting the change for the amendment, not have to go back to everybody, unless it, of course, impacts somebody else's property. Then, of course, you would have to get their approval. Lately, in the last, 5 years maybe, utility right-of-way permitting has been huge. There's been a lot of deference given to utilities, and this bill provides that all permit applications to a county or a city must be processed within an expedited time frame. So that's something we've seen a lot of in the past few years. So if this is approved by the governor, it would take effect July 1, 2020. So we're just watching the bill to see what happens. Of course, July 1 is coming quickly, but I'm sure, we'll see what happens. The second one I was tracking is Senate Bill 712. It's an environmental resources management bill. And what they are calling this bill is the Clean Waterways Act. It has a lot of environmental provisions. I think one of note, I was talking to someone in Marion County, Ocala area the other day, and one piece of this bill that's really notable is they're going to do a study on bottled water facilities in Florida, which I thought was kind of interesting because, there's been a lot of press on that in recent years with the aquifer, and I don't know what's gonna come of that, but the DEP will have to conduct a study on the bottled water industry in the state. They provide that the rights of nature, the bill prohibits local governments from providing legal rights to any plant, animal, body of water, or other part of the natural environment. So we can't give rights to our waterways. DEP will have to work with UF and IFAS to look at the discharge and the impact of golf courses. There are a lot of nutrients put in the soils and they look pretty and green, but they also impact the environment. So they're going to have to do a study on that. I think also of interest probably to us, because we still have some septic systems in Ocoee, of course, is that that on-site sewage program is going to be transferred from the Department of Health, and that's who we usually work with now when we have an issue or a permit on a septic, to the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection. So that was kind of interesting, and I didn't really dig into the history on that, but I found that to be pretty interesting as well. So local governments will have to create wastewater treatment plans for certain basin management action plans, and DEP will be updating its stormwater design criteria and rules, and that should be interesting. So there are other provisions in this bill. It was a mammoth bill. The third one I'm gonna mention to you is 1066. This is the impact fee bill. And as you recall, in Orange County, because of various factors, we have a provision in our charter, we have policies, we have the law. There's just a lot going on in Orange County with regard to impact fees, school impact fees in particular. And this is Senate Bill 1066. This is the bill that everyone looked at to kind of save Orange County from itself at this point with regard to where we are with our school impact fees versus our concurrency and other improvements that developers pay for as they develop a site for residential development. The bill does not allow exactions or additional funds to come from a developer. It will come off your impact fees. Initially, the Senate bill had language that would exempt a county that had a charter provision that was in conflict with this law. And when the bill got over, and that was the last time I updated y'all on it. In fact, it was right at the end of session. And the bill got over to the House right after that. It was within the week. And the House, some attorney in the House, for the House committee looked at it and said, this isn't legal. And I don't know why. I'm assuming it might have been equal protection because, everybody has a right to have a standardized system of education and other things. But I don't know. That was just my assumption. So they removed the language. They struck the language. And so right now, under our current law, the impact fees, if you collect an impact fee and you also, a developer donates land or something for a school, you are going to have to offset that value from the impact fees. And that is the current state of the law. In fact, someone asked me the other day, they said, hey, I thought that, that law passed that saved Orange County, and what is this? And it's a big article in Growth Spotter that says, developments and developers in Orange County are calling for solutions. So the county's working on a solution, and Mike's gonna update you a little bit more on OCPS. I just have one more bill I'm gonna mention to you, and this was House Bill 1339 on affordable housing. This is a really interesting bill too. It authorizes local governments to approve the development of affordable housing on any parcel zoned for residential, commercial, or industrial use. So it's opening up other uses that weren't typically, associated with affordable housing or residential development for that use. So it's
Would
gonna
that be like a hotel turning into a low-income apartments, something like that?
I hadn't
That's interesting.
really thought about that.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, isn't that opposite? Does that come in conflict with that Supreme Court case, Kilo? What am I thinking?
Only
is
if
that
they
a
were
little
gonna take
different?
it, yeah, if they were gonna
Only if it was a take.
Right, yeah, this
Okay.
will allow me, if I'm an owner of an industrial parcel and I wanna develop it into an affordable housing complex, I won't have to seek a rezoning, because then the local government would have to allow that use on that property. So it actually kinda opens up uses.
It does.
But it also, it makes you kind of concerned about compatibility, because, I mean, where I live is there's a lot of industrial around the Goldenrod area, and I can tell you, you know, how compatible will that be with housing? But that would be something we would look at as we looked at plans as they come in.
What was that bill number, I'm sorry?
This is House Bill 1339. It also is going to require the reporting of local government impact fee data. It established that local governments may not audit a private building inspector more than 4 times in a month. We've had a little more influx of private providers doing inspections and whatnot. It also had a provision, I also thought this was really interesting, having moved here from Gainesville, where there were still some mobile home parks, and there still are some in Orange County too. This kind of changes policy a little bit as well. Permits a mobile home park damaged or destroyed by wind, water, or other natural force to be rebuilt on the same site and the same density as it was before it was destroyed. And you know, if you'll recall, in the past couple of decades, there's been kind of a push to not rebuild because it's not always a good spot. You know, if it's in a flood area or a high wind area or something, it may not be the safest place. But this bill did add that language that it gave some additional rights to, well, I don't want to misspeak, so I won't comment on the other rights, but that was a provision I found to be pretty notable as well. I think that's really about it, just the 4 bills that I'm really tracking. Mike's going to give us an update or kind of embellish what I was talking about with regard to what Orange County's doing right now with their developments, the residential developments.
Yes, and Dana was right. It's really the last couple of sessions has looked at property owner rights. There was the bill that would allows a property under development to use a private provider for plans review and inspections, or you can do them both or individually. So it provides an opportunity for a single owner builder, or any other development to use a private provider to do the full plans review. And when they do their plans review, they turn in the full project, already designed, engineered, reviewed building, and the building official has 20 days to provide a certificate of occupancy. And we have to, of course, maintain those plans, still kind of review, and we have to give them a discount. Same thing with the inspections. They can have both done by a private provider, they can have either or, the inspections done by a private provider. And the law says if they use inspectors for private provider for inspections, you cannot assess them a permit fee. You can assess them an appropriate administrative fee. Last commission adopted our fee structures for that. Under the plans review, you get a 25% discount if you use the private provider for inspections. The inspection fee is equal to 50% of the cost of what the permit would be. It's a way to, let a property owner have a project, hire a consultant, have it designed, the building designed and reviewed, and just turn it in and try to pick up some speed, save some time. We found with the build out, the conversion of the light industrial building, it was new, but for the city furniture, we did plans review, and we had a plan with them to do a lot of third-party inspections as part of the process, and it really did not save them much time. It didn't save them any time at all. And I had a phone call recently from someone looking, it's sort of a new checklist when you're doing a development. You have your financial, well, now you have the COVID. And is using a private provider a way to ensure your inspections are gonna happen? Or is the local government perhaps still on an alternate schedule? Is it gonna slow up inspections? It's not really it's just a general checkbox people are looking at now. And I said, certainly, we have a provision. We just adopted the ordinance to do the fee. But let me tell you what the law doesn't provide. It doesn't provide the consultant to do a temporary CO. The consultant's gonna get the plan ready, everything, the inspections, the plans, and the inspections, and say, here, building official, everything's done. provide a certificate of occupancy. But to get there, you've been looking at this nice shiny building when we could have given you a temporary CO under the building officials, right? Months in advance to get the furniture moved in and get the people trained. So we think we have some ways, and we still do some, we don't do every single inspection on a building. We do private providers. So we think we'll see this trend. It's really popular in South Florida. Here's one of the downturns in the bill. It doesn't say they have the right to work every day, holidays, nights, weekends. It says they have the right to have, we cannot limit them to have an inspection on cities after hours working or on nights or weekends. So they could have inspections. Some inspections do require a little bit of work done, so that's something at such time as we ever have a private provider for inspections, we will have to look at that and see how that's gonna work out. There's many aspects to that bill. It also, you have to, now, the building department has to provide their revenues and expenditures on the website by December of each year. Going on with that, property rights, and Dana mentioned it, it's utilities and right-of-way. There was a law a couple of years ago that said utility companies have the right to, and we have to expeditiously review permits to add facilities in the public right-of-way from a utility company. And at such time later on that the city or county has a road project, they have to pay to move those facilities out of the way. We kind of see this a lot with these new 5G antennas that are going up. We have looked at the criteria. We kind of balance it. We want our residents to have 5G, but I had one. They're kind of turning in these canned applications for a wood pole. It can't be any higher than the closest street light. And on a wood pole, one of them had the pole in the middle of the sidewalk on the way to a school. And I was like, okay, no, we're not going to approve wood, and you got to move it somewhere else. You can't say you can't have it, but you're not going to have it in the middle of the sidewalk with kids walking to school and have to walk around it. So there are a lot of provisions. There's another one that, and going with the septic tank, that was adopted under the Ocoee Parkway Protection Act that outlawed septic tanks, and it got stuck in rulemaking. They had, the Department of Health, someone had devised this package system. If you have a septic system, that you have your own little packing plant on the side of your house, and it was, I think at the time, I'm gonna say 10,000, but I don't know what the price was. And they kind of backed off and haven't had that rulemaking. And in today, if you want to build a house and there's not sewer system available, the health department will give you a septic tank. So it looks like they're trying to figure out a way to put some teeth into that. All of this kind of just builds off the Burke-Harris Act that provides compensation for regulations to property owners. Specifically with regards to the school, the impact fees. So that law said you cannot require impact fees until permit issuance. And so under the Martinez Doctrine of Orange County, that required projects to be able to test for capacity early on in the land use or rezoning. And under that test, the way Orange County processes, they don't look to see if any adjacent schools have openings. They just look at the schools you're in. Is it if it's over capacity, or if there's any committed projects and yours is going to put it over capacity. There's a student generation number. Let's say you're going to have to add, you're over 4 students in middle school and 10 students in elementary school. You've got to mitigate by paying that cost of that student station per student. Now you get a credit towards the impact fee, but that was considered now an impact fee, and they were doing that at the rezoning, not at the building permit issuance. And so there's just some technical language that school board, Orange County has to do some steps to help correct that. We do have one project that is being held up because of that. That's the Ocoee Village Center. And we hope to have this issue solved before September to keep that project alive. And so with that, we'll entertain any questions.
Why did the hotel cancel it? Are they having a problem with their,
Again,
are they having a problem with their rents or something?
No, it's an internal, it's an issue that they expect to have figured out. So by the July meeting.
like the idea of, the house, was it 1350 something?
Yes, House Bill 1339.
I kinda like that with the idea of putting, affordable homes wherever you can find space for them, because that was becoming a problem before COVID-19 as far as finding people affordable.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about what these bills are doing, and if we're now, and it's good, in planning, the backbone of planning is to make sure the public is part of the process. Now we have to have a specific element in our comprehensive plan that says how we're gonna do that.
Cool.
How do we do that now? We do an advertisement in the paper, we put a sign on your property, we send a 300-foot notice, we televise, we make our agendas public. There's gonna be a standard set of goals and objectives and policies that local jurisdictions are doing, and we'll look at that, and we're probably gonna have to beef up. Maybe the 300-foot notice is gonna have to be a 500-foot notice. Maybe it's more online interaction, the ability to do, the city of Ocoee has always had the ability to do email and call-in with our televising of our meetings. Not every jurisdiction has that. A lot of them don't televise their meetings. So that's just interesting. We're gonna have to make an element with goals, objectives, and policies to talk about how that public input is. So, could be Orange County, every case has a community meeting. You never know. We will bring that to you all as part of our comprehensive plan
Yeah,
amendments.
it'll come to you for
It lets
sure,
you-
once we start to revise the plan.
So just want to real quick,
Yep.
the city hall will be opening after July 7th. Therefore, the next week is our next planning and zoning meeting, and the public will be allowed to come in and be a part of us. My question to you is, do you want to go back to sitting at the dais for comfort for a while? We can keep this same setup and kind of mark off the first row, and the public can sit in the back, and they can sit in the foyer, however you guys want. So we'll just, we don't need an answer now, just think about it. We'll send an email out again, and so we'll know how to set up the meeting. What was that?
Don't reply all.
Yeah, don't reply all, please.
Thank
Yes.
you.
All right, thank you.
All right. So, next thing I guess on the agenda is the project status report. Anything additional on that?
Any questions on, we have the Vermeer site is under construction on the corner of Palm Drive and Ocoee Apopka. We are getting ready for to schedule a pre-construction meeting for an addition behind the Floors Direct. If you remember, the Floors Direct did a remodel on the front of the building. It's on Highway 50. They've created some leasable space, which they got an Orlando Health Imaging Center in there.
Yep.
They have the Floors Direct still in the middle. They have another suite on the west side. They'll be providing just more of a building in the back to kind of help the Floors Direct to facilitate what they need with creating those retail spaces. It's not a big project, but it does still add value to our CRA and to our city. And we have any other pre-construction meetings coming up? I think there's one more that's getting close. Can't remember what it is. And we have the Montessori school is looking at an expansion, so those plans will be coming through here soon.
You're good.
Yes, we have a couple of projects on Blueford Avenue across from the Top Gun Cheer. Two office, little warehouse, really nice buildings coming up that are going to create that urban feel and create jobs and activity in our downtown.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions or anything for the, all right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Member Lobnick, seconded by Member Forges. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. We will see you all on the 14th.